Hi, this is Bill Geswich. In this video, we're going to cover Xamarin as it relates to the Blazor app from scratch application. I want to show you that the services or the libraries that you created as part of the client service and the DTO can be leveraged for other client applications using Xamarin. So the agenda for today will be we're going to first go and update the Blazor app from scratch WASM standalone solution for an Azure URL. Sometimes when you're developing mobile applications, especially using Xamarin, sometimes using localhost is a little wonky, so I set up a test URL out there that we can use to test the mobile application, and I have the URL down below here, and I'll put it in the description of the video, so feel free to use that. And the second thing we need to do is when you add a library to Xamarin, sometimes it looks for a default constructor, so we'll just add one of those into the person client service. The next step will be to show how to integrate the client service and DTO into Xamarin. And then we'll run it and we'll see both an Android application and an iOS application that looks similar to or at least displays the same data that we displayed in the Blazor app from scratch application. So let's get started. Okay, here we are back in Visual Studio 2019. We are in the Blazor app from scratch WASM standalone solution. And there's only a couple of changes we want to make. We want to update the HTTP helper to point to the Azure server that I set up based on our Blazor app from scratch server. And that's blazorbuild.azurewebsites.net/API. And then the only other change we want to make here is in person service. Sometimes with the .NET 2 standard library, it looks for a default constructor, so we just added that here. Those are the two changes, and we can go ahead and build. And I'll see you in Visual Studio for Mac. Here we are in Visual Studio for Mac. I'm in a Xamarin solution called Blazor Xamarin. The link to my repository is in the description for the video. And just want to show you a couple of things. First, if you notice here, under dependencies, we have a couple of references. One is Blazor app from scratch.client.bl, and the other one is Blazor app from scratch.dtl. And the way you include those is do the same thing. You go up to dependencies, right click, add a reference. And if you notice, I have the references right here. You'd click on browse and you would go to where you have the project. So for me, I will scroll to that. And when you get to the folder for the solution, you'll want to go into the WASM folder. You'll go into the bin folder, and then depending on how you compiled to debug a release, you can go into either. I did a release, and then you'll notice there's a Net Standard 2.0 and Net Standard 2.1. Since the WASM project is a Net Standard 2.1 project, all of the compile time DLLs are in that folder, so we'll go there. And you'll see here's the Blazor app from scratch DTO, and here's the Blazor app from scratch WASM DLL, and then here's the client. So we would highlight these two and click on open, and that would include the reference. So that's the first step. Then we'll go to the next file we'll go to is the app XAML CS. For Xamarin file, this is one of the first routines that gets loaded. And here, the way you define dependency injection is you define it this way. And if you notice, here we have person client service defined. We're registering that. And it is from Blazor app from scratch, client, BL, services, just like we defined. The next thing I want to show you is over here in the base view model. That's where we define a public variable of type iPerson client service. We'll call it person service. and we resolve it to iPerson client service. And if you notice, that's also coming from the client BL services namespace. And then what we'll do is we'll go to the items. This is a master detail application. So there's a list of items, and then there's a detail view. The items view model defines this variable called items, which is of type person DTO, which came from Blazor app from scratch DTO. And then down here, you see that we read it. We read the get persons from the person service, which we had defined previously. And when you view them, we'll just go to the items page. And when you view them, notice I'm binding here to first name, and then I'm binding to full name, which are two of the fields that were in the DTO. And then on the detail page, you see I'm binding to first name, full name, and gender. So let's run the application and see what it looks like. First, we'll do it for iOS. Okay, here's the iOS version. We've got the same list of names that we saw previously. When you click on one, you get the details associated with them. You go back, and Barney, and you've got the same information. And so that's the iOS version working. And here's the Android version. Looks very similar. Here's the names. Click on one, you get the details associated with them. Go back. Click on the second one, go back. And there you have it. You've got an Android version and an iOS version utilizing the libraries that we've created as part of Blazor app from scratch. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions or any comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And as always, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.